The rock left Ava's hand before her brain could catch up with her body. It sailed through the twilight air and struck the taller man square in the shoulder blade. He spun around, eyes wide with shock. And in that split second of distraction, Ava lunged forward and grabbed the boy's arm. "Let him go!" Her voice came out stronger than she felt, her heart hammering so hard she could taste copper on her tongue. The two men froze, their grip on the child loosening just enough. The boy, no older than 6, twisted free and stumbled toward her. Iva pulled him behind her back, positioning herself between him and the strangers. Her scrubs were still damp with sweat from a 12-hour shift, her feet screaming in protest, but adrenaline burned through every ounce of exhaustion. "I'm a nurse at Metropolitan General," she announced, holding up her hospital badge like a shield. "Security has been called. You need to step back. Now." The shorter man barked something in Korean, aggressive and sharp. The taller one reached inside his jacket. Ava's stomach dropped, but she stood her ground, wrapping one arm around the trembling child while fumbling for her phone with the other hand. "Don't move!" A park security guard emerged from the tree line, radio crackling. "Hands where I can see them!" The men exchanged a glance, then backed toward a black SUV idling at the far edge of the parking lot. They climbed inside, and the vehicle peeled away, tires screeching against asphalt. Ava's knees nearly buckled. She sank onto a nearby bench, pulling the boy with her. He was shaking violently, his small body pressed against her side. She stripped off her jacket and wrapped it around his shoulders. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now." She kept her voice soft, gentle. "What's your name?" The boy looked up at her with enormous dark eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Leo," he whispered. "My papa. They said my papa sent them, but they're lying. Papa wouldn't. Papa's coming." "Of course he is," Ava murmured, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. "We'll wait right here together, okay? You're not alone." She didn't know if she was lying or not. She didn't know anything except that this child needed her steady, needed her calm, and she would give him both, even if her own hands were trembling. The security guard approached, radio in hand. "Police are 2 minutes out. Ma'am, can you—" The sound of engines cut him off. 3 black luxury vehicles swept into the parking lot in perfect formation, moving with military precision. Ava's breath caught. The doors opened simultaneously, and armed men in dark suits emerged, fanning out in a protective perimeter. Then he stepped out. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit despite the late hour, moving with a controlled grace that made the air itself seem to bend around him. His face was all sharp angles and cold authority. But the moment his eyes found the boy, something cracked in that marble exterior. Raw fear. Desperate relief. "Leo!" The boy broke from Ava's grip and ran. The man dropped to one knee, catching his son and crushing him against his chest. He spoke rapidly in Korean, his voice rough and breaking, hands running over Leo's face, his arms checking for injuries. When he finally looked up, his gaze locked onto Iva. She stood slowly, suddenly aware of how she must look. Exhausted, disheveled, her scrubs wrinkled, and her hair escaping its bun. But his expression held no judgment, only intensity that made her feel pinned in place. "You saved him." His English was flawless, accent barely noticeable, but his voice carried the weight of something vast and dangerous. "Who are you?" "Ava Coleman. I'm a nurse. I was just cutting through the park when I heard him crying." He rose to his feet, Leo still clinging to his leg. 2 of his men flanked him immediately, but he waved them back with a subtle gesture. He approached Ava slowly, deliberately, as if she were something precious and fragile. "I am Kang Jae-hyun," he extended his hand, "and I owe you my son's life." His grip was firm, controlled, but she felt the tremor in it. Felt the barely restrained emotion threatening to break through. Police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. Detective Reyes climbed out, taking in the scene with practiced eyes. The security, the luxury vehicles, the armed men maintaining perfect formation. "Mr. Kang," Reyes said carefully, "we'll need statements from everyone." The next hour blurred. Ava answered questions, described the attempted kidnapping, provided details about the SUV. Through it all, she was hyper-aware of Jae-hyun's presence across the parking lot, speaking quietly with the detective, while Leo refused to leave his side. The boy kept looking back at her, his small face still pale with shock. When the police finally dismissed her, Ava turned toward the bus stop, every muscle in her body aching with delayed reaction. She'd made it maybe 10 steps when she heard footsteps behind her. "Miss Coleman." She turned. Jae-hyun had followed, Leo's hand firmly in his. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the way his jaw was set too tight, the slight redness around his eyes. "Leo wants to thank you properly," he said, "but it's been a difficult night. Would you allow me to contact you, so that he can express his gratitude when he's ready?" Every instinct screamed at her to say no. This man radiated danger like heat from asphalt, power and violence and secrets. But Leo was watching her with those huge eyes, and she couldn't bear to add to his fear. "I don't think that's necessary," she said gently. "I'm just glad he's safe. Please." The single word held more emotion than entire conversations. "You don't understand what you did, what you risked. I need him to know that such courage exists in the world." Ava hesitated, then pulled a napkin from her bag and scribbled her number. "One visit. Public place, that's all." He took the napkin like it was made of gold. "One visit," he agreed. "Thank you, Miss Coleman." She watched them drive away, Leo's face pressed against the rear window, one small hand raised in farewell. Ava lifted her own hand, waving back, and tried to ignore the feeling that she'd just stepped off a cliff without checking the distance to the bottom. The flowers arrived at the hospital the next morning. Not an ostentatious bouquet, but a simple arrangement of white lilies and blue hydrangeas. The card was handwritten in elegant script, "For the sky lady who saved my son. With deepest gratitude. KJ." Her co-workers teased her mercilessly. Ava tried to laugh it off, but her fingers kept drifting to the card in her pocket throughout her shift. A week later, she agreed to dinner. The restaurant was upscale, but not intimidating, all warm lighting and soft jazz. Jae-hyun arrived exactly on time, dressed casually in dark jeans and a navy sweater that somehow made him look even more dangerous. Leo bounced at his side, clutching a crayon drawing. "I made this for you." Leo thrust the paper at her the moment she sat down. "It's you being brave. See? That's the rock. And that's you. And that's the bad men running away." Ava's throat tightened. "It's perfect, Leo. Thank you." Dinner stretched beyond 1 hour. Leo chattered about school, about his favorite dinosaurs, about how his papa promised to take him to the Natural History Museum. Jae-hyun mostly listened, but when he spoke, his words were thoughtful, precise. He asked about her work, seemed genuinely interested in her stories about the pediatric trauma unit. "You must see terrible things," he said quietly, while Leo colored on his placemat. "Sometimes," Ava admitted, "but I also see people survive impossible odds. I see families pull together. I see hope." Something shifted in his expression. "That's a rare gift, to maintain hope in the face of suffering. What about you? What do you do?" "I run a shipping consultancy," he said smoothly. Too smoothly. "International logistics. Very boring. Mostly paperwork." Ava didn't believe him for a second. But Leo chose that moment to spill his juice, and the conversation shifted. It became a pattern. Museum visits, where Leo dragged them both through dinosaur exhibits. Homework sessions at coffee shops, where Ava helped with reading, while Jae-hyun worked on his laptop. security always hovering discreetly nearby. Weekend afternoons at the park, where Leo played while the adults talked. Ava found herself laughing more, her chronic exhaustion easing. Jae-hyun was unexpectedly funny in a dry, subtle way. He noticed everything, remembered details she'd mentioned weeks ago, asked follow-up questions about her grandmother's arthritis, brought Leo's favorite books to leave in her apartment. Her grandmother was less charmed. "Baby girl, you need to be careful." Miss Eleanor fixed Ava with a sharp look over Sunday dinner. "That man is dangerous. I can see it in the way people move around him, like they're scared." "He's been nothing but respectful, Nana." "Rattlesnakes are respectful too, until they're not." Eleanor reached across the table and gripped Ava's hand. "Powerful men always come with a price. You remember that." But Ava was already in too deep. She recognized the feeling, had fought against it. But 3 months after that night in the park, she had to admit the truth. She was falling for Jae-hyun, for his quiet intensity, his fierce devotion to Leo, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. For the man who remembered she liked her coffee with oat milk, who listened when she talked about her patients, who never once made her feel less than extraordinary. The shift happened on a Tuesday. They were walking along the river, Leo racing ahead to feed the ducks. Jae-hyun caught her hand, lacing their fingers together. Ava's heart stuttered. "I need to tell you something," she said, forcing the words out. "I feel safe with you. Both of you. And that terrifies me because I don't really know you. Not all of you." He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. The setting sun painted him in gold and shadows. "You're right to be scared," he said quietly. "I'm not who you think I am. But when I'm with you, I want to be. That terrifies me too." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Ava closed the distance instead, kissing him softly. He tasted like coffee and secrets, and when his hand came up to cup her face, she felt the tremor in it again. That barely controlled emotion always simmering beneath his surface. They were still standing there, foreheads pressed together, when Leo's scream shattered the moment. Fireworks exploded overhead, someone's impromptu celebration. Leo was on the ground, hands over his ears, hyperventilating. Ava and Jae-hyun ran. She dropped beside the boy, immediately assessing his vitals, while Jae-hyun tried to calm him, but Leo was spiraling into a full panic attack, lips turning blue. "We need to get him to the hospital," Ava said sharply. "Now!" The drive was a blur. Leo trembled in her arms in the back seat, while Jae-hyun drove with terrifying precision, speaking rapidly into his phone in Korean. They bypassed the emergency room entrance, heading straight for the private wing. Ava didn't question it, focused entirely on keeping Leo breathing steadily. Dr. Patel met them in a private room. "PTSD episode," she confirmed after the examination. "The fireworks triggered him. He needs rest and possibly medication adjustments." Ava stayed with Leo while he drifted into medicated sleep, holding his small hand. Jae-hyun stood at the window, rigid with tension. She heard voices in the hallway, harsh, urgent, male voices arguing in Korean. Curiosity pulled her to the door. She opened it a crack and froze. 4 men in suits stood in the corridor. Blood stained their knuckles. One had a split lip. Jae-hyun was speaking to them in a low, deadly voice, and though Ava didn't understand Korean, she understood tone, understood the way they flinched at his words, understood the cold fury radiating from him. When he turned and saw her watching, his expression shifted to something almost like shame. The men disappeared immediately, as if they'd never existed. Jae-hyun approached slowly. "Ava, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore. What are you?" He looked at her for a long moment, weighing something heavy. "Can we take this somewhere private?" They ended up in an empty conference room down the hall. Ava stood with her arms crossed, waiting. Jae-hyun paced once, twice, then stopped. "My family controls logistics networks throughout East Asia and North America," he said flatly. "We move cargo. Sometimes that cargo is legal, often it's not. We operate in spaces where governments and corporations can't or won't. We have enemies. 6 months ago, a rival organization tried to kill me. They killed my wife instead. Leo was in the car. He watched her die." Ava's breath left her in a rush. Oh God, Jae-hyun. The men who tried to take him that night, they worked for the same people. A message, a threat. "You stepped into a war you don't understand and saved my son from being used as leverage." His voice cracked. "You saved the only good thing I have left." "How many?" Ava demanded. "How many lives has your business destroyed?" "I don't count anymore," he admitted. "I stopped counting years ago because the number was too heavy to carry." "And those men outside? The ones with blood on their hands? They found the people who frightened my son. They were delivering a message of our own." Ava sank into a chair, head spinning. Everything made sense now. The security, the careful distance he maintained from normal society, the way Leo had nightmares, the fear beneath all that control. "I should walk away," she whispered. "I should take my things and leave and never look back." "Yes," Jae-hyun said simply. "You should. You deserve better than this. Better than me." But when she looked up at him, she saw the same man who had knelt in the dirt to hold his terrified son, who brought her coffee exactly how she liked it, who listened when she talked about her day, like her words were precious, who was broken and dangerous and trying somehow to be something different. "I can't," she admitted. "I've already tried. But I can't." "Then you're in danger. Anyone close to me is a target." "I know." He crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. "I've already started," he said urgently. "Dismantling things, shifting to legitimate operations. It's not fast enough, and it's not easy, and people are fighting me every step. But I'm trying. For Leo, for the chance of a different future." "For me?" she had to ask. "For you," he confirmed. "Because you looked at me like I could be better. And I want to believe that's possible." Ava reached out, touching his face. "Show me," she said. "Show me the change. Not promises. Action." "I will. But, Ava, if you stay all in. Full transparency from now on. You'll know everything, the good and the terrible. No more secrets. That's what I'm asking for." He kissed her then, desperate and reverent, like she was his salvation and his doom wrapped into one. Maybe she was. The warehouse fire made national news 3 days later. Police found evidence of money laundering, weapons trafficking, and human cargo routes. Jae-hyun's name never appeared in the reports, but Ava knew. Knew he'd burned his own operation to prove his commitment. Knew the risks he'd taken. Knew he'd painted an even bigger target on all their backs. When he showed up at her apartment at midnight, exhausted and smelling like smoke, she let him in. They didn't talk. She just held him while he shook, the weight of his choices finally breaking through that iron control. The confrontation came 2 weeks later in an underground parking garage. Ava had just finished a night shift when Jae-hyun called, voice tight with urgency. She found him pacing between vehicles, security stationed at every entrance. "Someone left photos in Leo's backpack," he said without preamble. "Photos of you, at the hospital, getting coffee, walking to your car. They're watching you now." Ice flooded her veins. "Why are you telling me this here?" "Because we might be followed. Because I need you to understand what staying means. They'll use you to hurt me. Hurt Leo. This is your last chance, Ava. Walk away. I'll make sure you're protected, but you have to leave. Stop making decisions for me. I'm trying to save you." "I don't need saving." She stepped closer, fury and fear tangling in her chest. "I need honesty. I need you to trust me enough to let me choose. I won't be collateral damage, but I also won't be shut out. This is my life, too, now. You don't know what you're asking. The things I've done. I know enough. I know you're trying to change. I know you love your son. I know you're terrified of failing him again. And I know you're worth fighting for. Her voice broke. But I need you to fight too. Not just against enemies. Against yourself. Against the man you used to be. What if I can't? Then we fail together. But at least we tried. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not, she agreed. But you've got me anyway. A sound made them both turn. Leo stood at the garage entrance, Jae-hyun's head of security holding his hand. The boy had clearly been crying, his face blotchy and scared. Please don't leave, Sky Lady, Leo whispered. You make the bad dreams stop. You make Papa smile. Please don't go. Ava's heart cracked open. She crossed to him, kneeling down. I'm not leaving, sweet boy. I promise. We're all staying together. Even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. 6 months transformed everything and nothing. Jae-hyun kept his word. He pulled out of 3 major operations, severed ties with dangerous partners, and pushed his organization toward legitimate international trade. It cost him money, respect, and several attempts on his life. But slowly, painfully, he built something different. Ava moved into his home, a secure, modern house with gardens and light. She learned Korean phrases to help Leo with his therapy. She met Jae-hyun's business associates, saw the empire he was reshaping, understood the impossible balance he maintained every day. The violence didn't disappear. There were still security teams, still threats, still nights when Jae-hyun came home with darkness in his eyes. But there was also laughter, birthday parties, homework at the kitchen table, movie nights where Leo fell asleep between them. And there was the baby. Ava discovered she was pregnant on a Tuesday morning. The test positive and terrifying and wonderful all at once. When she told Jae-hyun that evening, he went very still, then pulled her close and wept against her shoulder. Great shuddering sobs that released years of grief and fear and desperate hope. We'll be better for them, he promised, for both of them. I swear it. Now, on a Saturday afternoon in early autumn, Ava watched from the porch as Jae-hyun jogged beside Leo's bicycle, hands hovering ready to catch, but not quite touching. Leo wobbled, steadied, found his balance. His laughter rang across the yard, pure and unafraid. Security watched from the perimeter. There were still locks on the doors, still protocols and precautions. The past hadn't disappeared, but neither had hope. Jae-hyun glanced back at her, that rare full smile transforming his face. Ava placed a hand on her growing belly and smiled back, thinking about futures and choices and the courage it took to love someone despite every reason not to. Love hadn't saved him. Courage hadn't erased his past. But together, they chose a future worth fighting for. A future built on honesty and effort, and the stubborn belief that people could change, even when the world said otherwise. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Leo finally mastered a full loop around the yard without help. He threw his hands in the air, triumphant, and Ava laughed, a sound full of joy and exhaustion, and fierce, unbreakable love for the family she'd chosen, and the life they were building from the wreckage of what came before. If you loved this story of courage, redemption, and second chances, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories, and drop a comment below telling us what you think. Would you have stayed? Would you have believed in change? We'd love to hear your thoughts.